güvende olmadıkça sizler güvenliği tadamayacaksınız. Geri çekil, geri çekil. Beni buradan ancak ölüm alır. Bu zulümde payı olan kim varsa hepsi tek tek hesabını verecek.
Today is Monday, December the 19th, 2016, and we have some unfortunate news from overseas. This time it's in Turkey. We have the religion of peace that has struck yet again. This time a Russian ambassador has been shot and killed. Andrey Karlov was at an art gallery having a speech or some kind of talk in front of some cameras, and you had a so-called police officer in Turkey, a man named Mevlüt Mert Altintas, a 22-year-old. I cannot really pronounce the name, of course, but I will place that on the screen before you. He was 22 years old. He was like an off-duty police officer, and I assume he was hired as security for this event. He shot Mr. Karlov, I think, 8 times in the back. I know he let off at least 8 shots, but he did shoot him in the back, and it's all on videotape. And I'll place the full and uncut video in the box below. And after he committed the act, he screamed allahu akhbar, which we all know what that means. The media will tell you it means God is great, but that's not really true. I mean, they'll say takbir, which means the same thing. It's like a war cry. They'll say it's not, but it is. And then he said, we die in Aleppo, you die here. And he said a few other things. He was speaking in Arabic and also in Turkish. Now, some would ask, well, why was he speaking in Arabic and Turkish? Well, some of the things you would say in Arabic don't really translate that well into any other language, like allahu akhbar. You could just say God is great, but again, that's not what that means. It's specific words that are meant to be said in Arabic because they are affiliated with Islam. And that, of course, is the whole problem here. That is the whole problem that underlies it all. The media will tell you, well, it's not about Islam. It's not about Islam, just a few bad apples. And that may be true. You may have the majority. Well, part of that may be true. You may have the majority of Muslims that are just regular people that just want to go work and play and have kids and marry and do all that type of stuff like that. But there is always going to be a radicalized portion. Now, to what extent that portion exists is up for debate, but nobody can deny that it's there. Nobody can deny that. I mean, the videotape we have proves it. I mean, and there's been more violence today. I think it was a Christmas market somewhere in Europe.
Live video coming in 16 minutes past 9 o'clock in the evening in Berlin as injured are being loaded into ambulances. We now have from Berlin police at least 9 people are dead, at least 50 people are injured in a reported, in what authorities believe is a terrorist attack on a Christmas market on the fashionable west side of Berlin outside Kaiser Wilhelm Church. And you can see there is the truck that came crashing into this scene. Local witnesses now report at least the truck was believed to be going approximately 40 miles an hour when it came off this divided highway right outside the church, plowed into Christmas shoppers and the rest. There were a number of Christmas stalls, makeshift buildings that are set up where they would sell gifts that you might give for Christmas, small places, smashed into 3 of them, destroyed them, and along the way killed at least 9 people, leaving some 50 people injured.
So that happened already in Nice, France, and it happened here in the USA, in Ohio State, and it's always the same thing behind it. So at a certain point, we have to understand what Islam is all about when it relates to the people that are radicalized. Some would say that, well, there's Christian killers too, but here's the difference. If a Christian person kills somebody, they don't say Jesus is Lord or God is great or God is beautiful after they do it. They just don't do it. There aren't any religiously motivated Christian killings. Now, if you have any evidence of that not being true, please let me know in the comments below. You could say, well, a Christian person may kill somebody. Yeah, sure. A Muslim may kill somebody as well. Just because a Muslim kills somebody or a Christian kills somebody does not mean that it's motivated by their religion, right? Because it could be anything. It could be, a gangbanger. It could be violent, like a domestic dispute. It could be retaliation, revenge. It could be any number of things. It could be, a planned hit, like a mafia type thing. And just because you are a Christian or a Muslim does not mean that that was a primary motivating factor behind what you did, right? But then when you have people saying Allahu Akbar after they kill somebody, and they say, well, we die in Aleppo, you die here. Well, who is dying? It's the terrorists that are dying, the Muslim terrorists, right? You have some civilians that die as well, but who's to blame for that? Is it the terrorists or people that are trying to fight the terrorists that happen to have civilians get in harm's way? It's just that simple. So we already know what the motivation behind this is. And to pivot a little bit into what this can actually mean, you have a Russian ambassador that was assassinated in Turkey. Russia and Turkey have always had problems since the Ottoman Empire, right? Since the whole Armenian genocide. And it's very interesting how you have this young Turkish guy, and the group that engaged in the Armenian genocide was called the Young Turks. Interesting name, isn't it? But I digress away from that point. My point here is that Russia and Turkey have always had problems from the Ottoman Empire on up until today. Vladimir Putin is going on record to say that Turkey is holding some Russian nationalists that come from Chechnya. Now, Chechnya is a region that's in the south of Russia, right close to Iraq, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and right in the Caucasus region. You have a lot of Muslims that go there. They go to Syria to become radicalized, and then they come back to Russia and in other areas of the world to commit crime. And when I say other areas of the world, I do mean the USA. The Boston bombers came from Chechnya. So there's a problem with terrorism in Chechnya that spreads around the world. And when they come back to Russia, of course, they don't want them to come commit crime and then flee to a place like Turkey and get safe harbor. They would like for them to be extracted, but that's not going on. And Turkey also kind of halfway supports ISIS. Some would say that they support Kurds, or the whole thing with the Kurds is kind of a red herring, in my opinion. People say that we should arm the Kurds, but the Kurds have their own agenda. The Kurds are not our allies, nor are they our foes. They have their own agenda, which is the state called Kurdistan, which does not normally exist. They're separatists, right? They're nationalists and they're separatists. So that whole thing is also playing a part in it. The Kurds, and then you have the Syria situation, the different factions going on in Syria, the different factions going on in Russia, Turkey, and everything else. You had the failed coup attempt in Turkey. That was a very strange thing. You had the military basically take over the country, but the civilians were able to hold it back. That was weird. I don't know if that was a false flag or not, but that was just very strange. And this guy here may or may not be a holdover from that failed coup attempt. I don't know. But from what I'm reading right now in the media, they're saying that he's a follower of Fetullah Gulen, who is like the fall guy, I suppose, to blame for a lot of what's going on in Turkey. But if you know more about that whole situation with him, and by the way, he's being harbored right now in the U.S. The Turkish government is saying that people that follow him are coming to Turkey or are in Turkey. They're Turkish and they're engaging in violence. That may or may not be true, but we'll find out more about that later. Now, what people are saying online a lot, they're bringing up Franz Ferdinand and also Gavrilo Princip. Now, if you don't know about that situation, I'll explain it briefly without going into the whole long and complicated details of the Balkans. Now, at one point in time, there was a place called the Austro Hungarian Empire. Of course, you had the country of Austria, Hungary, and other, smaller states around that. There were just one big conglomerate. Serbia is a sovereign country. At one point, it used to be conjoined with Bosnia. Bosnia and Serbia was one country, but there were different ethnic groups in the different countries that exist today that also existed back then. But I'll get to that a little bit later. So there was a guy who was 19 years old, a guy named Gavrilo Princip. He was dying of tuberculosis. He came from a very poor family. He grew up in Bosnia, which at one point was Serbia, and he was a Serb, ethnic Serb himself. So he was kind of like oppressed by the Muslim landlords that he had, allegedly. And that's a whole separate issue with Muslims in Serbia and the Balkan Peninsula in general. That's why you have Kosovo, but that came a lot later, and I digress. Getting back to this point here, he's saying that the Austro Hungarian Empire, which ruled over the place where he lived, which at one point was part of the then sovereign and now sovereign Serbia, he's saying that they are the reason why his family was so poor. Or he was just saying, I can point to them as a reason why I am not where I should be. I'm 19 years old. I'm dying of tuberculosis. And he did die at age 23, even though he was 19 at the time where he did what he did, which I'll explain right now. You have the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, who was the heir apparent to the Austro Hungarian Empire. So Gavrilo Princip took the opportunity to go out and try to kill him because that was a symbol of his hatred, and he did not want the Austro Hungarian Empire to continue. And to defend Princip, if I can here, he was not the only one that wanted to do that. There were a bunch of hitmen at the time that were in Bosnia that wanted to kill Franz Ferdinand. And Franz Ferdinand was not liked in general by anybody, those that were in favor of the Austro Hungarian Empire and also those that were not in favor of the Austro Hungarian Empire. So he comes to Bosnia, he visits. One person throws a bomb at the car that he was riding in, and then it explodes and hits two of his men, but it does not hit Franz Ferdinand. So after that happens, they still continue on their way, go to the meetings or whatever, have some speeches. And then after the meetings and speeches are over, he gets in the vehicle, and rather than going to his next route, which was planned, he decided to take a detour and go see his men that were injured. This caused confusion because they were not able to really, because you got to coordinate that a lot. It was more difficult back then with no walkie-talkies or cell phones or nothing like that. So you got to do word of mouth. Everybody's not on the same page. Long story short, they end up kind of getting caught in a place where they shouldn't have been without protection. Gavrilo Princip happened to be right there with his gun. He points it in the car, shoots the wife, and shoots Franz Ferdinand, and they both die. This is the spark that led to World War I, because at that point, the Austro Hungarian Empire declared war on the sovereign Serbia. When that happened, Russia came to the aid of Serbia. Germany then went over to France. They invaded Luxembourg and Belgium. The UK wages war on Germany, and that was the whole thing that started off World War I. Eventually, you have Italy that gets involved. Then you have the Ottoman Empire, which is current day Turkey. And during that period of time, that's when you have the Armenian genocide that happens. So that is the history of the whole situation. And that is part of the reason why Turkey, Russia, and that whole region have had problems for a very long time. Not even talking about Islam and the Ottoman Empire. I don't even want to talk about that. That's a whole separate ball of wax. But Turkey is kind of like right in the middle of it. They're the Ottoman Empire. You have Europe to your west. You have Asia and whatnot to your north and to your east. Well, you have the Middle East to your north and to your east, and you also have Asia, Greater Asia, once you get to the Silk Road and all that kind of stuff like that. So to bring it back on home to this situation here, this is going to be a problem because you have a lot of long-standing and old bitter beefs between a lot of the countries there. You have people that have committed acts of terror recently, and this one is very egregious because it was a police officer that did it. This guy was apparently an off-duty officer that was behaving as security for the Russian ambassador. So that's going to be a big problem. And I don't think that the U.S. should be involved at all. Some people say this is a move by the CIA. Some say it's fake because you didn't see blood on the actual, fly from the guy's body when he got shot. But that's not always how it works. He got shot in the back. It ain't like, when you get shot with a gun, you have blood spraying everywhere. That's not really how that works. He got shot in the back and fell on his back. So if he was bleeding, the blood was probably on his back, under his back, rather than just spray everywhere in that room. That's not really how that works. And they were able to kill the actual shooter as well. So that situation is over as far as that particular incident. But this situation will spark further conflict between Turkey, Russia, and also that region in general. And the whole thing about Aleppo, I don't know. I can't say if it was the European media or the Western media that played a part in that being a point of contention. I think people that are loyal to Islam, that are radicalized, will always find a reason, whether it be the mainstream media, whether it just be cultural differences, because that's the whole point behind the terrorists being in Syria. What they want is for Islam to be the root of the land. Right now, Syria is actually a secular nation. Yes, they are majority Muslim, but they're secular, meaning the state is not governed by Islam. It's not like the Islamic Republic of Iran where everything is ruled by Islam. If you look at Iran's flag, it says Allahu Akbar on a different kind of script 23 times or 22 times. It says it a lot. So that tells you right there what their country is all about. And also Saudi Arabia, also a non-secular country. But Syria is secular, and they also have different, they have diversity as far as religion. It's not all Muslim. They do have a Christian population, which is a minority, and they are protected. But then when you have ISIS to come in to install Sharia law, that no longer becomes the case. The Christians will be excommunicated And there's also the Kurds, like I said before, but the Kurds have their own agenda. They want Kurdistan. They want to be, they're also nationalists. And Gavrilo Princip, by the way, if I didn't say it before, he was a nationalist himself, part of a group called the Young Bosnians. They wanted Serbia and Bosnia to reconnect. Or if nothing else, they did not want the Austro Hungarian Empire to be ruling over them and to be oppressing them. And it could be a similar thing here. This guy, this police officer, killed the Russian diplomat because he did not like what Russia was doing over in Syria, even though Russia was invited by Syria. So who's your beef with? Is it with the Russians or is it with the Syrian government? I think it's with both. And I think that's why ISIS is gaining power, because you have people that want to support the Islamic way of being rather than a secular way of being, which is what Syria and Russia represent. So that's pretty much all I got for it. You know, hopefully this does not precipitate a larger conflict, even though it could, because like I said, you're ruffling old feathers. You have a lot of very oldest time, nearly, beefs in that region. And this could really spark a whole big flame, because you already have tension over there as it is. You got a lot of the Chechen nationalists in Turkey that are hiding away from Russia. Russia wants them back. They're not getting it. You had the failed coup attempt in Turkey. You have the situation going on in Syria. You got Obama being kind of hawkish on Syria and Iran and Russia. China's in the mix. It's not looking good. I think if it was to be a war, what would happen is you have the U.S. pretty much on an island by themselves, maybe with Saudi Arabia with money, of course, maybe with Israel as far as money, but who are you going to have as far as the manpower? If there was to be any kind of war, it'd be MAD. That's mutually assured destruction, because you would have China, Russia, Pakistan, like the whole Middle East, Asia. It'll be a bloodbath, and I hope we're able to avoid it. But maybe I'm overreacting, and this would not be anything more than what it is. Hopefully they're able to find out what's going on, if there's anything deeper here that's involved, and they're able to stomp it out before it becomes a problem, or at least contain it so it does not fester and become something worse down the line. So what do you think? Do you think this act was something that was planned out by the government of Turkey? Do you think it was Fetullah Gulen? If I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly, please excuse me. I'm not Turkish, obviously. Do you think that there's a sentiment in Turkey that is anti-West and pro-Islam as far as the way of the land, meaning they're pro-ISIS, they're pro-Daesh, right? Is that what's going on? Or do you think that this situation is political? You think it's a game? Do you think it's something that has been planned out by the media? Like I said, some people said that it was fake, even though, like I said before, when you get shot, especially from the back, and you have clothes on, it ain't going to be like you have blood just spray everywhere like it's a video game or something like that. It ain't like Call of Duty or Doom where you have just extreme blood and guts just shoot out from every orifice when you get shot, especially with a gun that was like probably no more than a 9mm or something like that, a basic service weapon. It ain't like a automatic, you know, like a rocket launcher or something like that, or a grenade where you have limbs flying everywhere. But it was a white room. You could have easily seen blood, but do you think it was a fake? Was it something from the CIA to make Muslims look bad? Was it something from the Russian government to make a statement to say, hey, you don't want things like this to be happening as far as people getting assassinated? And if it was fake, you know, this guy's a real person, so you probably would see him again. You know, I think he's going to fake his own death, and you may see autopsy photos as well. But we'll find out more about what's going on as time progresses. I just want to get that out there to y'all and get your opinion on it. So whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.
I knew him personally, so I'm not speaking from hearsay. And last autumn, during my visit to Turkey, Ambassador Karlov accompanied me all the time. This murder is clearly a provocation aimed at undermining the improvement and the normalization of the Russian-Turkish relations, as well as at undermining the peace process in Syria promoted by Russia, Turkey, Iran, and other countries interested in settling this conflict in Syria. The only response we should offer to this murder is stepping up our fight against terror, and the criminals will feel the heat.